Alhamdulillah. Wassalatu wassalamu ala nabina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa ashabihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu jami'an. Ahlan wa sahlan wa marhaba bikum kullukum. Bi'ithnillah. Today I'd like to talk about benign neglect in the Salafi community, in particular with the African American Muslim. This will be a part 2 of my video of my observation of the Salafi community within the African American Muslim community over the years. Recently, I watched a video of 3 Imams who are not well known in the Salafi community, but there are people who are known, and they were discussing there was a discussion about financial issues or the economical issues inside the Salafi community, in particular the Black African American Salafi community. And one of the individuals who was speaking was talking about how he has been on the board of masjids for many years, and the financial situation in the community where the masjids are not being financially maintained because people inside the community do not have the finances to maintain the masjids, and they are barely surviving financially on their own. I have said for many months now, that within the Salafi community, in the dawah, there is a benign neglect pertaining to systemic racism, or acknowledging systemic racism in America that affects mass majority of African American, and many of the Salafis are practitioners in America, in the US. Majority of them are from the African American Muslim community. And when you're looking within their inner city, from the mass followers of the Salafi community who are African American, that majority of them are afflicted with the African American issues inside the US. Majority of them are afflicted with every issue that every African Americans are afflicted with in America. They also are afflicted with it, despite them being Muslim, despite them being Salafi, despite them putting the title Salafi on their name. Every issue in the United States that is dealing with the African American community pertaining to systemic racism, they face all the issues of every other African American Muslim. So there is a culture within the Salafi community pertaining to the Imams and the Du'ats that they are not addressing systemic racism. But when they make videos and have discussions about financial issues in the community, and why people don't have money, why people can't maintain the masjids, why there is a lot of divorce, why these things, social issues that are going on in the community, why they exist, they are failing to realize it is the outcome of systemic racism. And because we're running away from our race issues, and we're running away from being black, we're not recognizing that we are African Americans, or we are African American Caribbeans, that our ancestors been in this country for a long time, and that we have been subjugated to systemic racism through the Jim Crow laws, through mass incarceration, due to being also through boycotted out of certain type of business and industries, and that the ghettos and the areas that the communities we live in were designed by the government for us to be in there and to have limited access to wealth, so that we do not engage with the government, or we not engage or compete with the white majority in the US, because we don't want to address these issues of systemic racism that is coming from the government, that has been planned and been in action for decades, for hundreds of years. And because we're not recognizing these issues, then when we have talks in the community, or we make videos and we have discussions about why the African American Salafis can't maintain the masjids, and what are the duties, financial duties of the community, and what's going on, and they're noticing it's a revolving door of this problem, because many of the imams and the du'ats in the Salafi community, they have neglect. They're not recognizing systemic racism is a direct result why you cannot maintain your masjids and community. The social issues with the African American Muslims due to systemic racism is the reason why you cannot maintain your masjids and your community, and why the peoples in the community are not coming out and supporting the masajid, because they don't know how to support something. They don't know how to work together as a group of peoples. They don't know how to pull in their monies together as a group of peoples, because we've been taught by the system in this country to practice individualism and not to practice group economics. And this is the direct results of systemic racism, how it caused dysfunctions in the African American Muslim community, socially, financially. So we as Muslims, we have to start recognizing in the African American Muslim community, we have unique situations, we have unique problems, and they need certain type of solutions. What might be working in Saudi Arabia might not work in the U.S. amongst African American Muslims. What's going on or what's working in Yemen might not work for what's going on in the African American Muslim community. And this is why these brothers who have spent time learning Islam, and I digress when I say learning Islam to what aspects? Because a lot of the brothers who are talking, who claim they study Islam or travel to study Islam, when you look at them and you ask yourselves what are their qualifications, you'll find that many of them do not have the qualifications to address these issues. Many of them do not have the qualifications to address these issues. Some of them do, some of them don't. And then, because in the African American Salafi community, if you talk about black issues pertaining to systemic racism, pertaining to the effects of systemic racism, like economic issues and financial issues, welfare issues, if you talk about the black people agenda and issues, you're labeled as a black nationalist. So many people in the Salafi community, in the African American Salafi community, they're turning their backs on black people's issues, which their communities are heavily suffering from, because they don't want to be labeled as being a black nationalist. So they believe, turning their back on black people's issues in America that everybody in their community are facing and have the problems with, turning their backs on the issues and not addressing it by name, that this is make you a black nationalist, and them turning their backs on it makes them a better Salafi. This is the dysfunction in the African American Salafi community. It's a big dysfunction that many of the du'ats have. I'm not saying all of them have, that many of them have. And because they're turning their back on black issues, systemic racism, the reality of systemic racism through the government, how slavery impacted the African American. Think about it. Black people were enslaved in the U.S. And while black people were enslaved in the U.S., white people were allowed to come to the U.S. and become rich and wealthy from black labor. And then on top of that, black free labor as slaves. And while other race of people in America, and historically in America, while blacks were enslaved, they were forbidden to learn how to read and write, and they was forbidden from economics. Then on top of that, one group of people was allowed to rise economically, and another group of peoples, African American, were not allowed to rise economically. Then when black people were slaves, after making millions, making white people wealthy, America is wealthy due to the slave labor of blacks, making America's wealthy, making whites wealthy, who even today are receiving or have the benefits from the slave labor of blacks, who are wealthy today, these corporations that exist. Black people were not given anything in recompense for what they done or what they contribute and slavery. So at the same time, when black people were freed as slaves, white people, immigrants who came to this country legally, United States of America, they was given loans, bank loans, business, and land, and this was denied to the African American peoples. White immigrants could come to the country new, and the blacks were denied land, free land, tax exemptions, and grants from the government. And at the same time, whites were allowed to have all these programs. That's why there's a financial imbalance in the African American community. And this didn't happen for 10 years. This didn't happen for 20 years. This happened for hundreds of years in the United States for black peoples. So when we have in that Salafi community, African American Muslims want to give talks and talk about why people in the community can't pay the bills for the masjid. Well, when you guys are really ready to recognize American history, historical history pertaining to your families, your peoples who've been in the U.S., African American Muslims who've been in the U.S. for about 5-6 generations. Why we don't have wealth today is because you guys are not recognizing systemic racism has financially put black people behind in the U.S. So that's why their community can't afford to maintain your masjids. And then you're looking at the immigrant Muslim community who just came to the U.S. and why they're successful and we're not, because you're not recognized. Black people in America are in a unique predicament. Black people in the U.S. are in a unique predicament. I don't care what happened in Saudi Arabia. I don't care what happened in Europe. I don't care what happened anywhere else. I care what happens in America history. And nobody in America has been slaves in America. What been done to African Americans in American history was not done to anybody else. And if you say the Native Americans was given reparation. The Native Americans were allowed to do business. Native Americans were even allowed to own black people as slaves. Native American wasn't forbidden them to read and write. Rather yet, the white man put the Indians in schools, they called them Indian schools, and forced them to learn to read and write. While at the same time was forbidden for black folks to learn how to read and write. And if a black person got caught reading and write, he could be killed for it. So when you want to talk about why the black community don't have no money to pay for the masjid, don't have no money to give you brothers as imams nice salaries, then you got to turn around and look at it. Systemic racism is the issue. This is the direct results of years of systemic racism and boycotting black peoples or barring black peoples from finances. That's why brothers can't pay you these lofty salaries you guys want. And many of you guys do not really deserve a high salary because you don't have the qualifications for a high salary in the first place. And because you don't have the qualifications or you don't have the experience and the know-how, this is why you're not able to make assessments with the situation and noticing the reason why people in the community can't give me these high salaries, the reason why they can't maintain the masjid, because systemic racism, this is the direct result of systemic racism that bar blacks from economics in the U.S. Because you can't make those assessments and you are ashamed to mention it in any videos or lectures that systemic racism is the main cause of why black people do not have any economics and don't understand group economics and don't practice group economics. If you can't say that in the video, then you don't need to talk about why the African American Muslim community, Salafi community, can't come together or can't maintain the masjid. You shouldn't be talking about these topics if you're scared to say systemic racism. It's the direct results. This is the direct results of systemic racism. Are you guys blind and can't see? You live in the black communities and you guys are blind and can't see that you're not the only ones who are suffering from this. You're not the only one suffering from this. Other black people, so Christians or non-religious peoples in the black community, all of them are suffering from the same problem. You don't notice that. But next, I want to talk about how the brothers in the African American Salafi community, they love to talk about Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, but you guys don't take no lessons from Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab. You might read his books. You don't take no lessons from Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab. You take no lessons from his bio, his seerah. It was not Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, rahimahullah, a revivalist. He was not just only a revivalist in Islam's perspective, meaning reviving the deen, bringing people back to Kitab and Sunnah. He also was a revivalist for the Arab peoples. For the Arab peoples. Saudi Arabia today won't be in the status as it today if it wasn't for Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab. Alignment with Muhammad ibn Sauood. Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab dawah wouldn't be at a status it is today. Saudi wouldn't be in the condition it is today if it wasn't for Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, rahimahullah, alliance with Muhammad ibn Sauood. What did Muhammad ibn Sauood do? He was an Islamic preacher. He was a ruler. He had connections with the Arab tribes. And because of his connections and the people who respect him and the power that he had, this is the reason why Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab dawah was able to spread. So Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, had an alliance with Muhammad ibn Sauood. And Muhammad Sauood did a lot for the Arab people of Jazira Arabiya. He did a lot. You don't think that's activism? You don't think that Muhammad ibn Sauood didn't think about the people of the Arabian Peninsula? That anything that he did didn't benefit his peoples? The Arab peoples of Jazira Arabiya? Do you guys don't take no lessons from history? You don't learn any lessons. You guys love to talk about Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, rahimahullah, but you take no lessons from his bio. You think that they didn't do anything for the Arab peoples of the Arabian Peninsula? You think Muhammad ibn Sauood didn't do anything for the Arab peoples? What do you think? How you think Saudi got to the position Saudi is today? That's from also the efforts of Muhammad ibn Sauood, who put his peoples first. He put his peoples first. He thought about his peoples and what his peoples who are Arab, what they need. But you Negroes from the Salafi community, you Negroes can't see that because of your self-hate. You in love with Muhammad ibn Wahab, you in love with the Arabs, but you guys are not even taking no lessons from them. And you can't even take their templates and implement their templates where you live in your own community. Then that means that something wrong with you guys. And that's why the communities are in the conditions they are in. You cannot even take the templates of Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab and Muhammad ibn Sauood and implement them where you live. You can't even do that. Muhammad ibn Sauood is also a revivalist. Saudi Arabia today wouldn't be in the condition that it is today if it wasn't from the actions of Muhammad ibn Sauood. You were rebuttal peoples who refute Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, and then you were rebuttal peoples who criticize Muhammad ibn Sauood. You will rebuttal these peoples. You will refute peoples who talk about them, but you guys cannot even take the templates of Muhammad ibn Abdul Wahab or Muhammad ibn Sauood and implement their templates in your own communities. Where Muhammad ibn Sauood, he did what was best for the people of Jazira Arabiya, the people of Najd. See, you guys, you want to talk about Muhammad Abdul Wahab and Muhammad ibn Sauood all the time, all day. You want to talk about them, and if anybody talks bad about them, you're quick to protect them, but you cannot even implement what they implemented in your own communities. Look at Saudi Arabia today. Saudi Arabia is a wealthy country today. Saudi Arabia today is a wealthy country. You telling me that Muhammad ibn Sauood didn't do anything for his peoples? You telling me Muhammad ibn Sauood didn't do these things for his people's survival? And you guys don't want to address none of the issues, political issues that deal with the African American Muslims? You guys don't even want to address systemic racism? You guys don't even want to address the social issues in the community that is the extension from systemic racism. Who are you guys kidding, man? This is going to happen to you guys, dawah. You guys are going to fade away. And this is how you're going to fade away. The peoples that following are going to fade away from you guys. They're going to phase out from dealing with you guys. And this is why. You cannot solve their reality. The reality that they're living in, you guys have no solutions for them. Because what the image that you're giving of Islam, you brothers, nice Arabic books behind you, all this stuff is cosmetic. What is something that is cosmetic? Cosmetic is something that is only seen in the outside. The inside of your dawah is nothing. That's why you can't solve the people's problems. And that's why when you look at the immigrant Muslims who come to the U.S. and their Shaykh or their Tulab they involve in activism, they involve in building in their community, you guys turn around and say these people's they Ikhwani. But when you go to their communities, these people's are not having no problems paying bills, the masjid being maintained. The Imam don't have no problem getting his salary. The Muslims in those communities, they have real communities where schools, clinics, healthcare, business, food, everything. They have all these things. And then the imams in their communities who push towards these things, you guys are calling them Ikhwani. But in your own community, you guys, your people talking about, yo, they're having problems paying bills. They have no money, economics. You guys sitting at the table scratching your head and like, yo, we don't know what's going on. We don't know how to do anything. We don't know how to get the brothers to get business together. We don't know how. But when you look at the imams in the immigrant Muslim community in America, where they have the know-how, you guys turn around and say these people's they're Ikhwani. They're Ikhwani. I'm telling you, sooner or later, people's going to fade away from you guys if you guys don't get your act together and start solving the people's problem. And you need to stop browbeating the people with Quran. Oh, the Quran said this. Why you guys can't get this right? Allah Messenger said this, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why you guys can't get it right? Because you guys not looking at the social issues of the peoples where you live. You're not looking at the historical reasons why they are in the conditions where they are in. Somebody said, why all the African American masjids, Salafi masjids are in the hood? Because you don't understand redlining. You study history. One brother said this. He's in his 40s. You talking about you African American, you know nothing about redlining, how the black ghettos got made, and you wonder why all the Salafi masjids are in the hood, in the black communities? Man, you don't understand redlining? You don't understand the government made the ghettos? You don't understand why all the black people live in the ghettos in these areas? You don't understand? These things were man-made by the government. It's called redlining. And home removal programs. Look it up on the internet. Look it up. Look it up historically. You guys don't know this? You talking about we don't understand why the African American Muslim they masters in the hood or why they can't pay the bills in the community? You don't understand why? You telling me when you was if you were African American, you Salafi, you were Imam and dawah, you telling me that you didn't go to school in America? You didn't learn nothing about civil rights movements? You didn't see what the civil rights movement was about? You was in a school in America. You wasn't paying attention in school? Especially if you went to school in the hood, man. You got some black conscious education if you went to school in the hood. One of your teachers in your school, black, white, or Hispanic, one of them was really conscious about black people's history in America. You telling me you guys never heard about anything about the condition of black people are in? What happened? When you went to Saudi or when you went to Egypt or you went to Yemen, where all this stuff it just dropped out your mind, your history? You forgot you're black or something? See, the things about black African Americans that we have a lot of self-hate. And a lot of us, when we start learning Islam and we'll be amongst the Arab peoples or Muslims from other countries, we start wanting to be like them and mimic them. But you guys don't notice. You do us who complaining. While the masters are not being kept up financially, what you do? You think you in Saudi Arabia or something? You think you in Mecca? What you think in Yemen or something? You think you in Egypt? You know, in the Muslim country, the governments maintain the masjids. That's why. In the Muslim government, in the Muslim countries, the government maintain the masjids. So you in America now, they no government maintaining the masjid. The people who have to maintain the masjid, the people in your community got to maintain the masjid. Now, if your people in your communities having financial issues due to systemic reasons, which are systemic reasons, and you don't address them, you will never find the answers for it. If you don't know the psychological issues of the Black African American community, if you don't understand the psychological issues that people are going through in the Black community, why they can't do business together, why they don't have money, why they don't want to contribute, sometimes they don't have because of systemic racism, and other times Black people in America don't know how to work together. You didn't learn nothing about American history, African American history in America. You didn't learn nothing about any of the Black movements in America that came together. You know about what's COINTEL? You don't know nothing about American history? How you guys from US, from the Black communities, and you know nothing about Black people history or the government history dealing with Black people in America? How you guys, what? What happened? That's not important no more? Your history is not important no more? Did not Muhammad ibn Sauood did things for the Arab peoples? Did not the Arabs fight against the Turks? Hold on. That's the whole... Did not the Arabs, Saudi Arabia, Saudi, got the Shuyuk and Saudi today, still talking about the Turkish government, what they were doing to them, the racist treatment from the Turkish government against the Arab people. Today you got the ulama in Saudi still talking about this topic. Why Saudi, Muhammad ibn Sauood, and the Arab governments did what they did to fight against the Turks, who were the Khalifa of Islam. Talk about the racism of the Turks and the oppression of the Turks and their racism. And you telling me you Negroes who claim to be Salafi, you do arts, you guys don't want to talk about America, racial history, how the government treated Black peoples, how the government manipulated Blacks, how the government oppressed Blacks, how the government enslaved Blacks, how the government drugged Blacks, how the government put Black people in certain predicaments in neighborhoods so they can remain in those conditions? Are you guys kidding me? You kidding me? Are you guys kidding me, man? You guys are kidding, man. Who you guys kidding, man? I'm telling you, people are going to start losing respect and stop following you guys because you don't have the solutions, and at the same time, you're not recognizing what is the main issue and problems. You're not recognizing it. It's systemic racism. You don't even want to talk about it. You don't even want to mention it in none of your videos. Systemic racism and white supremacy affects the livelihood of Black American Muslims. You ashamed to say that. I don't want to be labeled as a nationalist. These guys not going to listen to me if I talk about these issues. Then know what's going to happen? Black people are not going to remain stupid who following you. All of them are not going to remain ignorant. They're going to see you guys are really ashamed to talk about these issues. Then some of them are going to start saying, man, you guys really don't have any real solutions. As I heard the talk yesterday, the brother said, man, I hear you guys talking about Quran and Sunnah in one particular masjid. I'm not going to say the name. And I could see the classes. But he said, when we going to start living this stuff out? I was like, wow. He said, when we going to start living this stuff out? The one who's making the complaints. He said, we're going to start living this stuff out. The reality is the guys you're talking to don't know how to live it out. They don't know how to bring it out. They don't know. They don't got the elm for that. They don't got the elm for that. And they scared because they think, oh, you're a Black nationalist. Because you guys think Salafiyyah means, oh, don't talk about culture. Don't talk about your nationality. Who told you that? Who said that? Who said that? Look at Sauood. Muhammad ibn Sauood. Did he do that for the Ummah? Well, Muhammad ibn Sauood did for Jazeera Arabiya. Did he do that for the Ummah of Islam? He didn't do that for the Ummah of Islam. Muhammad ibn Sauood didn't do that for the Ummah of Islam. He did that for the people of Jazeera Arabiya, known today as the Saudi peoples. The Saudi peoples. The people of Jazeera Arabiya. He did that for them. He did it for them. For them. Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, he did it for the deen. Revival for the deen of Islam, meaning for everybody. For everybody. Ibn Sauood, he did this for his peoples, Jazeera Arabiya, known as the Saudi peoples. That's why the government is named after him. That's why the country is named after him. He did it for his peoples, to protect his peoples, to help his peoples. And you Negroes don't want to talk about Black issues. What are we going to say? Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab was a nationalist? Shaykh Muhammad ibn Wahab, did he not align up with Muhammad ibn Sauood? The ruler who ruled over his peoples and helped his peoples? Did not the Arabs of Jazira Arabiya and all the Arab countries went against the Turks, who were the Muslim Khalifa? Because the Turks were racist against Arabs. And today, the Saudi Shuyukh from the Kibar Ulama still today talks about the racism and the kufr of the people from Turkey and what they did to the Arab peoples. Who you kidding me, man? I understand Arabic. So who you guys kidding me, man? Who's kidding? Who's kidding? The more African Americans are exposed to Islam and learn the Arabic language, the more they're going to start seeing these things. Wow, but they have the shuyukh care about their peoples and the condition of the peoples and their struggles. And if they are oppressed by peoples, they care about this stuff. And you Negroes in America claiming Salafis were du'at and to that, but you guys are running around in a circle and want to talk about no black issue because if I talk about it, I'm going to become a nationalist. Who you kidding, man? Who you kidding? Sooner or later, what's going to happen to you? People are going to turn away from you guys because you don't have real, physical, tangible solutions. You just have a lot of talking, rhetoric, cosmetics. Like I said, the books behind you, all this stuff is cosmetics. 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 Did not the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, did he not get down with the peoples? Was not the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the battles? You notice something. The Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam was in the battles. In the battles with his companions. He was in the struggle with his peoples. He called to Tawheed and he dealt with the Arab people's issues. And people are going to start saying, well, these guys, y'all sound good, but you don't have no tangible solutions, meaning that you guys are just talking. You have nice cosmetics, nice Arabic books, nice, neat Arabic books, and some people are impressed by these cosmetics. I'm not impressed by these cosmetics. I'm impressed by what you are actually doing in the community that is tangible change. Tangible, meaning it's not just speech. Tangible. You guys don't have it. You don't have it. And that's because what you're trying to do is mimic what you see Shuyukh doing in the Arab country. But their country's already established. You just want to mimic what the Shaykh is doing, how the Shaykh teaches in the Arab countries. But the Arab countries are already established, meaning that they got rid of their oppressors already. They got rid of their colonialists. They got rid of the colonialists in their countries. They got rid of the oppressors, what they said was the Turks. They got rid of all of them. So they live in safety and security. And that's why the Shaykh can sit down like that and talk and give lectures. You guys got to get out the masjids, get off the minbars and start going in the street and doing some real work in the street. Real work in the street. Now get off YouTube, get off from the cosmetics and get in the streets and do some real building. See, you guys don't want to do that because talk is very easy. The cosmetics don't fool me. Cosmetics don't fool me. Matter of fact, there's some shuyukh who say about books, neat books. He said this is the sign when you have people have neat books. Some shuyukh say this. The neat books all lined up nice on the bookshelf. Some shuyukh say that's the sign that the people don't read the books. Some shuyukh say that. He said when a person have a bookshelf and it's a little bit disorganized, the books are out, not in its place, and they sitting around different place, that's the sign that the Shaykh, the person, is reading and using the books. And I digress. Some scholars, all scholars don't say that, but some scholars, they have that type of opinion. If the books are too neat, that means that you're not reading them. The next, reading a lot of books don't mean that you know how to implement things. And there's a difference in dawah. Did the Prophet ﷺ have a lot of books with him? Did Abu Bakr have a lot of books with him? Did Umar have a lot of books with him? Did the Khulafa al-Rashidin, did they have a lot of books with them? They were out there. They were the knowledge. They were the knowledge itself. They had the knowledge, meaning they implemented the knowledge they learned from the Prophet ﷺ. They implemented it, and they was out there with the peoples, out there doing things, out there making change, out there being leaders, out there being governors, out there being callers to Allah, out there building. Do you read in the Hadith, in the Battle of the Trenches, the Prophet was out there digging. He tied something around a rope around his belly. He was out there digging, working with the peoples. You guys not out there. You guys just talking nice maktaba, man. We need to get away. We need to get bypass the cosmetics. Not saying books are not important. Not saying learning is not important. Not saying there's not certain etiquettes, but we got to get bypass the cosmetics and the lip service. As long as you keep on running away from systemic racism and the reality of white supremacy in America and how it impacts the African American community, as long as you guys keep on having the benign neglect, you will never solve the people problem. What's going to happen? Some of these African American brothers in your community, they're going to start going to the immigrant Muslim communities where they have some shuyukh in there, some shuyukh with them from the Arab countries, some shuyukh who's doctor, and they see that they're teaching peoples and they actually are building. They're going to start turning around and say, you know what? It's better for me to put my kids and have my family with these people because look, they are implementing what they know. They are implementing what they know. You guys don't know how to build institutions. You guys don't know how to build institutions. I'm telling you, if you guys know how to build institutions, you would have had them already. You don't have them. And you've been around, some of you guys been around in the dawah 30 years, 20 years, 15 years, 10 years. 20 years is enough. Some of these Muslims just come in this country, 5, 10 years, they got institutions. Look at some of the first Islamic universities in America, or Islamic institutions in America that teach religion. You notice 5 years, 10 years up. So you guys, we've been here in African American Salafi Community. How long? How long? 20, 30 years? 30 years? Since the 80s and the 90s and early 2000 and got nothing to show? And you wonder why I have no institutions? Because you guys don't have the elm to build it. First, you don't have the elm to build it. And then those individuals from us who are black, who have the knowledge, you guys don't respect them. You're ones criticizing them. So you don't have no leadership. So everybody's clicking up. You got different groups here. You got little cliques here and cliques there and cliques there, and that's it. That's all you guys have. And you're all separated, and you all have nothing together. As a group together, you have nothing, and that's why the people in your communities are complaining. Yo, we don't have anything. What's going on? Y'all worrying about the master. You're worrying about getting paid salaries. And people ain't got no money to give you guys no salary, especially if you're not reproducing anything. And then you have some of you brothers who are in good predicaments in their masters in the community because mass majority of your followers in the community, they ain't black African American. They're the immigrant Muslim, and they don't want paying your salaries, and they want putting money in the community. Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be real. Let's be real, man. Let's really be honest with ourselves. Some of us. Then some of us, we don't have some of us, you might just have some book information. Learn, Shaykh explained to you books. That's all you have. How the Shaykh explained the book and taught the book. Some of you brothers, yeah, that's all you have. The Shaykh explained the books and you understand certain books the Shaykh explained. That's all you have. How to build societies, you don't have. Iqtisadiyya is economics. There's economics in Islam. Many shuyukh wrote many books, and actually it is a kulliyya fi jamiat al-Islamiyya. It is also a kulliyya, a faculty in Islamic universities. Islamic economics. You guys don't even know that. Most of the things I mentioned to you guys is also part of Islamic economics. You guys don't understand that. You don't understand that. Muhammad ibn Sauood, he understand that. Look at Saudi Arabia today. He understand that. Look at Saudi Arabia today. They understand who they were oppressor was. Shaykh Muhammad Abdul Wahab, he wrote fatwa against the Turks. They knew who their enemies and their opponents were. You guys don't want to make it clear who your opponents are. And your opponents are the kuffar, and you're still ashamed to mention systemic racism and white supremacy, and it's kufr. And you're still scared to mention and talk about white supremacy and systemic racism. And it's kufr, and they kuffar. And they are kuffar, and you scared to mention them. Who you joking? You're not kidding nobody. People I'm gonna end the video. People gonna start noticing after a few years. People tired of this stuff already from you guys. Only you're gonna get the newcomers who don't know. People who've been around for a long time, you're gonna say, man, they tired of the lip service. They want to see tangible change. And if you guys are not doing the tangible change, watch. These brothers and sisters who got family and got children and worrying about them, they're going to start going to the communities that have the tangible change and the tangible solutions. They're going to start going to them. So if you guys want to really make some change, you better make some tangible change that's dealing with systemic racism. That's straight up from white supremacy. White supremacy, how it affects the peoples in its societies. How white supremacy affect the blacks. How white supremacy affect the mental health of blacks and their thinking. And you guys don't think it's serious? You'll think, oh man, this is not real. Then I gotta tell you, or you gotta look at Sirah Musa alayhi salam, or Qissa Musa fi Quran. The story of Musa in Quran. After Allah freed the people, or Bani Israel from Pharaoh, what did they do? They built a what? Calf. Why did the people, Allah freed the children of Bani Israel from Pharaoh? Why would they build the golden calf? Psychology. Psychology. Oh, psychology. There's psychology in Islam. Psychology. Thinking. Ilmu nafs. Psychology. Oh, because the people, the children of Bani Israel thought, because they was what? Ruled over. They was the slaves of Pharaoh. They were their slaves. And the slaves thought, well, the sign of power and freedom is having what? Your golden gods, which the pharaohs, the Egyptians had. So they thought the sign to show that they are equal people power. What they do? They build a golden calf. Why? Psychology. Psychology. That's part of psychology. The dysfunction of their thinking. The corrupt thinking, dysfunction of the thinking. Meaning that when you've been ruled, we've been slaves for peoples for hundreds of years. You're slaves. You are the slaves of peoples. It corrupts you psychologically. Psychologically, you be affected by it. That's why the children of Bani Israel built the golden calf. Because they wanted to be like people who they thought was powerful. So that means that when you're enslaved by somebody, you being enslaved, when somebody is enslaved you, it affects you psychologically. Our peoples have a lot of psychological issues going on due to systemic racism in America. And if you don't know what systemic racism is, go look it up online. What is systemic racism and what is white supremacy and how does it affect the mentality of the people who they conquer over and they rule over who are not white. I end on that. سبحانك اللهم بحمدك اشهد ان لا اله الا انت استغفرك واتوب اليك.